back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we bring you news and information you can use on your next real estate transaction. This week I'm joined in the studio with Hydie and Jim McAlister of McAlister Investment Real Estate, and we were talking last segment about what their company does and how they find land that they then resell to builders and developers, and we're going to talk a little bit about the work that goes into it, because I think that there's, right now there's a shortage of houses, no doubt. There's a shortage of lots as well. And I think from a consumer's perspective, it's why aren't the builders building more houses? So we want to talk a little bit about the process that they go through and what is needed to get more subdivisions up and running in the Houston area to accommodate all of the influx of people moving here, because we have people moving from other states and from other countries over to the Houston market, because we've got such a strong housing market, such a strong economy in the Houston area. So Hydie, let's talk a little bit about that. I know you were touching on last segment about kind of where you find this land and some of the process that you go through to find it. It's a lot of research.
Tons of research. And having been raised by an engineer, kind of know how to do that. So we approach the city almost in a mathematical way, divided into sections. We want to know where the future roads are going to be. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that drives transportation and jobs, mm-hmm. which would place where the homes are going to go. Geographically, Houston is very open. We're not held by the ocean or anything like San Francisco or Boston, for example. But with the new roads opening, the Grand Parkway, that has really changed transportation between 290 and I-10, to pick an area of the city as an example. There's over, probably 20,000 acres out there. Not all of it viable due to different things that we need to know about. Mm-hmm. Floodplain, drainage, utilities. Does it have access? Is it bound? Does it have a marketing window to it? All of these things I have to look at, because I know a developer is going to need that. Right. The reason they're willing to go into that area and take on some challenges is that before the downturn, developers or builders were even taking on a developer hat, buying their own land and holding it. When the downturn hit, they had to let all that go. And so then they started looking at smaller tracts, 50, 75-acre tracts where they could do the one section and mm-hmm. get the lending that Senior was mentioning earlier. That has all dried up. There's not that many 50-acre tracts left. So now they've come to partner with people like ourselves who can help them buy larger tracts of land. So we'll go in and kind of work with them to maybe hold a position for them where they want to be in the next couple of years. It takes about 2 years for them to develop that land. They need to go in, do all the research, do their drainage, as I mentioned, and everything. Then they do a site plan, then they plat it. Then they create the mud, and then they go in and they put in the utilities. And so you're about 24 months before you have a home on the ground.
So all this shortage that we're having right now, it's going to be 24 months before we've got the amount of housing we need to absorb all these people moving in.
I was speaking with a very large developer here in town about 10 days ago, and I asked him, I said, I know there's 6,000 acres in this section of the city that's held by developers who are trying to get started. When do you expect houses? He said, minimum 18 months. Yeah. So, yes, you can't just run out, on a tract of land that was a rice paddy and build a house. You have to do a lot of stuff.
I think part of the misconception for that is because as a consumer, if you go buy 10 acres of land and build a house, it can be built in 9-10 months. Sure. So you don't realize when you're putting a whole community, all the things that have to be put in. It's not like just building one single house.
Extensive engineering is done in platting it and designing it and getting the utilities to it.
So you do a lot of planning on that piece of raw land when you look at it. And one of my question is, if you look at a piece of land, much like the Pearland area, that a lot of floodplain, didn't look real usable, a lot of engineering went into making it usable land. Is that something that you can look at and kind of figure out a plan and make sure it's going to work for developers?
Yes, that's where we add value. Okay. Which I think we are unique to our competitors. We really understand, having Jim Senior, who was in development, and our other partner, Paul Connor, who comes from development. We really know what we can do prior to a developer owning the tract to help them.
So do you just plan it, or do you go out and put things on it when it needs it? So, for example, if part of it's not accessible because of a creek or, do you go out and build a bridge so they can see how it's going to all be accessible, or do you just plan it and so that they know it's feasible when they purchase it?
We will not actually do it.
Okay.
With the exception, sometimes we'll put in a curb cut, that sort of thing, or form a paper mud to get that preliminary work done to help the developer expedite his timeline. I'm looking at a track right now that to help purchase, I'm hoping to, maybe get a smaller acquisition number, and for that I'll put in a bridge for them or something. Everything's negotiable. If you're in real estate, you understand that.
Oh, yeah.
But we do a lot of the pre-planning for a developer. Because of the structure of our fund, we really can't do anything vertical. So that puts a little bit of a limit on what we do. But we do pre-planning, talk to engineers, get drainage studies worked out or plats worked out to help them see how the land may work.
Right.
So
and you talked a little bit about the Grand Parkway opening up some areas in I-10 and the 290 area. How, when you're looking at the city and growth patterns, and I know you work with Metro Study and some other people to kind of help you determine growth patterns, what other things do you look at besides transportation, and what areas do you see, that you feel like there's going to be growth in? Because when people look around Houston, there's growth everywhere, in all directions. It just seems to be everywhere. So where are you seeing the growth patterns for the next couple of years?
Development is driven by accessibility, roads, your schools. There are definite districts that people prefer to be in and prefer not to be in. So that line is very important, depending on which side you're in. Would you buy? And I do look at the school district very strongly. Drainage is extremely important. In Houston, rice fields used to be Katy. It's not anymore, so the engineers have figured out how to do that. But if there's too much, you can't develop that track. So drainage is huge in Houston. In Austin, it would be water.
Okay.
So really it's driven by that and roads and schools. That would be the first three things I look at.
So a developer wanting to build, what area of town would you point them to? Or is there one area?
There's really not one area, to be honest with you. I'm currently working with some developers in the Katy area. We have one of the last tracks that's Katy ISD, which made it a prime piece to be involved in. I am looking at a lot of property out 290. I would say the 290 area is really blooming because of the Grand Parkway opening. You still have the Richmond-Rosenberg area. That's fantastic. East of town, I haven't done much residential. We used to, in our previous funds, had property up south of Kingwood on Lake Houston that did really well. Not a lot left up there, so kind of bound by availability.
Okay.
And jobs drive where the developers want to go, so you got to look at the job base.
And I know a lot of what you do is research at the company. Why is this an ideal time for people to buy into real estate? I mean, if you were talking to someone who's got a lot of money and they're trying to figure out where to put it, why would you think that real estate is where it needs to be?
My short answer to that is every portfolio should have real estate in it. Our unique way of acquiring cash only in a fund helps diversify an investor. So someone who can, our minimum investment for an individual is $250,000.
Okay. For
an institution, which would be a college fund or something like that, is $1 million.
Okay.
And so it really fills that, usually approximately 5% of a portfolio that should be in real estate. Obviously, you need to diversify your investments, but our platform provides a unique way for someone to not only invest in real estate, but in multiple tracks via one vehicle.
And right now in Texas, you consider this a solid housing market?
Absolutely. Jim Sr. can probably quote you a bunch of stats on that, but yeah, the growth is amazing. The lot shortage only means there needs to be more. The pent-up demand in the apartments, over the last few years is strong.
Real quickly, let's talk about home builders. Their stock prices have been going up. What's caused that?
Well, when we went into the downturn, they simply were not selling houses because people had that subprime problem. They were just dormant. There was an uncanny amount of inventory out there that had come out of the subprime problem. That got wiped out. And then in about 2010 and 11, you begin to notice that the prices were not falling quite as fast. The houses were not depreciating.
All right, let's finish that. Let's come right back from a break and finish that. We'll be right back here on Houston Real Estate Radio.